Hi everyone, it is time for another project update. There are several important things ready to share and show. They connect together more than they may look at first. This update is about the new pre-production manual, the 4th edition Errata, the expanded guidebook, and the digital tools. Rebuilt homepage, redesigned card database, and the transition into Adreama Forge. Some of this is practical production work. Some of it is a cleanup after years of pondering and feedback. And some of it is a new support material that should make Machina Arcana easier to start, easier to return to, and more interesting to replay. I'm going to move through it in that order. First the physical printed materials, then the guidebook editions, then the website, card database, and finally Adreama Forge. Do excuse me if I sweat like a pig and if you hear the sound of a fan in the background, but it's quite hot here in Europe these days. So let's start, shall we? The manual went through another quality pass. This was based on collected feedback and my additional checks. Alexandra implemented those changes into a new pre-production version. There are book-wide readability changes, like improving page numbers, example text, contrast in diagrams, and colorblind support where it matters. These are not exciting changes to read as a checklist, but they're exactly the kind of changes that make the book feel better at the table. I'm going to move through these manual errata slides quickly, because the point is not to read every single item aloud, but to show the kind of quality assurance that happened before sending the material toward production. Some of these fixes are very small: punctuation, page references, spelling consistency, labels, and icon corrections. But small things matter in a rulebook. This is why this QA pass was important to finish before production. After the manual is printed, every small ambiguity becomes permanent for that print run. The new manual is available in the files and download section, so if you already have the game, you can download it and start playing with it. The second major part is card errata. This list came from years of collecting my own notes, but also player feedback and questions. We have now tackled the 4th edition errata across Core, From Beyond, and To Eternity. Most cards are unchanged. The goal was to fix the cards that actually needed it, mostly about buffing or nerfing cards, and sometimes making things more aligned to the established rules and principles. Except To Eternity chapters. They are all reworked, but more on that later. For the slideshow, I'm showing the updated card on the left and the old card on the right, so the new version is the main thing you look at. I will not read every ability aloud because that would be a terrible video, but I do want to show the kinds of changes that were made. Blunderbuss has been mostly nerfed in two ways. The first way is that we changed from target's adjacent monster to a target's adjacent unit. So this means that the second hit can also attack Exploding Barrel, but it can also attack Explorer if it's the only adjacent unit. And for the second ability, we gated the threat reduction behind an effect roll. Krakane just buffed a little bit, added enters playability to push adjacent units one space, especially now with the recharge stations that gives you a use inventory effect. You get to use that effect more often, so I think there's a lot of situations where you can use that wisely. Reverberating glaive, it's the similar thing based on the changes to the blunderbuss. Now it's not just the adjacent monster, you get to attack adjacent unit. So again, it also works with the exploding barrels, but it can also not work in your favor if you are the only unit next to a monster that you're trying to attack. You will attack yourself as well. Flamethrower, this is just resolving one, I would say, inconsistency that you can burn stuff in your direction in a line, but do not attack the ethereals. So in this way, because it says targetable by range through, so that means if you don't have a way to target ethereals, that means that the flamethrower would not work on ethereals. Now this has been addressed. Ghost powder, just updating. Before we had walls, closed doors and obstacles. Now it's barriers and obstacles, just using that word that we introduced before. Reconnoisseur, if you remember, action space is a category and chapter space is no longer an action space. That means we can easily drop the non-chapter conditional inside the second ability. Caligamuris, a little bit of buff, because before you could move through passable or pit spaces adjacent to wall, but now it's adjacent to barrier or obstacle, so this gives you much more usage from that item. Checkerboard cravat, just replacing the gain apparel stamina with the bound event horror roll reduction. Curb Stomper has been renamed to Bulwark Brace. I don't like the name, and I think it has some kind of connotations that are very violent and not something that has any place in the game. So that means just making a much more better name for the apparel, Bulwark Brace. Proximity Bender, that's a big nerf. Before you could really abuse that item, which is a level 1 item, and just for 1 essence you get to teleport within 1 space, and that's huge. So in order to use that ability in some way, we needed to nerf it a little bit, and by placing 2 stamina means first that you are not going to play it outside of your turn, and secondly you need to pay 2 stamina, which is a lot. Based on what the effect is, I would wager it's still a very, very important item. Scryer seems almost the same of any item deck, but the new one says of any deck. So that means this works also for monsters, monster deck, explorer event, and horror event. It doesn't work on chapters, sure. The Delian Clasp apparel augment, just a little bit of buff of using range through instead of a normal ranged targeting. Exoskeleton, again a little buff. I want to have a completely uniform way of looking at torso items, and if you look at a torso item, they all have the same top and bottom connector and an augment. So I just wanted to standardize how they work. Also, I just slightly changed the wording of exoskeleton, but nothing that changes the actual effect. Crystal Figurine is another nerf, similar as the proximity you get before for 1 essence, just your ethereals. And what does that mean? That means no monster can touch you. You can just move through everything, and it was just a little bit overpowered, and especially again for level 1 item. So with this nerf, I think the artifact still has its place, but it's not overpowered as before. Flesh necklace, just similar as with the cravat. I don't like that when you gain artifact and you already have an artifact, so that means that the artifact that you have is not something that you are satisfied with. So I change it, and in a little bit different way. It's when you spawn monster, reduce your horror rolls by 2. So this is also quite a substantial upgrade, I would say. Frenetic Drip only has your added to it. I mean, it is in a way implicitly clear that it's about your attack rolls, but let's explicitly tell on the card. Void Booster, is it a nerf or a buff? I think it's a little bit of a buff because you have an additional incentive of being at max essence when having Void Booster. But Apraxive Sac, a buff, definitely a buff. Before, you use the sack and that's it. For 1 stamina, you use the consumable and that's it for your turn. But on the next turn, I mean, of course, the monster normally moves as before. Well, with this one, you get a way of a prolonged effect. You get to sacrifice 1 stamina, but the monster is again paralyzed. A slight buff for the Psychogenic Fulminator gives you just the option to specify any unit on any map tile, not just your own. Just a very minor change, not teleport that explorer on any map tile edge, but to any map tile edge, because this is what we consistently say across other cards. Electrocutioner, it's actually the same effect, but it's worded, I think, more clearly. Hypnoxic Bomb also got a little buff with halving the stamina required from 6 to 3. Narcomantic Bomb also quite buff, I would say, because it's a level 3 item. You really need to do something substantial, and if you just skip, okay, it's a lot, but in this way you also remove some of the problems that you have on your way to your next round. So removing horror markers, you get to reset spawn and horror ratings and start a new round. Something that can help you out. Retorting Reflector, this is a small buff as well by halving the stamina requirement. Jesse, increase range of your weapons ranged abilities by 1 and increase your items range by 1. Yes, indeed. This also means that the consumables and artifacts also are applied. So it's a nice buff for Jesse. Urhag, enormous update. There was 1 comma that was actually missing before otherwise, but now the comma is in its place. Within Reach, a little bit reworked Explorer event. Before you have just target chest or event space for 3 stamina. Now event space costs 2 stamina. And why not, upgrade a little bit more, because now you get to activate any action space based on its cost. So I think this is a nice buff. Far reaching is just using the established term barrier. So we had, I would say, a missing blocking symbol. It's better to have it nicely printed on the card. This also, this is the second chapter in the Horror in the Ice. Then Statue of Despair has again that missing blocking symbol, and the Beast as well. Now from Beyond card Errata. Frigoric Shackles have, I would say, a buff. A nerf in terms of how many effects can be played at the same time. Before, you could play up to 3 at the same time because you see a lasting effect 3. This one, it's lasting effect just 1, but the same as if you remember the Parapraxive Sac. It gives you the ability to tame that monster for more than 1 round. And I really like that mechanism, so I used it here as well. Spectral Flasher is something that can be quite useful, but now it has a way to restore the charges. Death Whistle, buffed with another ability. Gunther is, I would say, buff. Well, he's buffed but as a character, but as a card now he's also buffed, because before you had not unclear but not very logical way of playing with him, because once you placed a trip mine token on one side of the door, the monster could move through the door diagonally, and that means it wouldn't activate the trip mine token, and that didn't really make sense. So now it's quite different, and you activate the trip mine token once a monster moves through the door, and then it activates both of those trip mine tokens on any side and attacks units adjacent to that door. Color Out of Space actually has two changes. First is a visual change, because Alexandra made that resolution table that we consistently use throughout the game. And the second one, you can see that the Color Out of Space is not immobile, so it can create interesting situations by moving the color out of space. Then maybe later it gets to teleport its adjacent units. Fire Vampire is the same, it's just an updated, more elegant representation of his second attack. For Recurrence, after playtesting, Destroy Bound Explorer event is the only way to progress to the next chapter. It is thematic, and I like that, but it can be quite hard to find any bound event. So it gives them the option to more easily find the bound event and progress to the next chapter. And the Recurrence endgame also has been changed to have two different victory conditions based on the player count. For 1 and 2 explorers, you get to lit only 2 chapter spaces, but if there are 3 or 4 of you, you get to lit 4 chapter spaces. Now to Eternity, non-chapter Errata. Pulverizer, just the wording issues. First of all, it's not when you play consumables like plural, just a singular play consumable, and it's your attack rolls, just to be absolutely certain that it doesn't mean by all attack rolls are increased. Skeleton Wand is buffed this time, and if you have max charges, the arcane attack is from 3 low attack die to 3 high attack die. Abyssal Diviner, removing space because it's pit is enough. Aranaic Backpack, just a wording issue because we introduced barrier, so we are using it right now. Fright Gazer, we lost something. Explorers can target ethereal units, but we gained something else. The first ability is no longer an active ability, and it's every round you get for free to look at the top monster and top horror event card. This can be pretty useful when playing and planning your turn. Glimpse Doppler was broken in one way with that restore essence, and it didn't really make sense totally. So now it makes sense a lot, and not just, you see, it's the first ability is the same, destroy only from item deck, but the second ability gives you the option to look at top cards of any 2 decks. So that means even explore event, horror event, or a monster. Talisman of Tiamat gets a reworded and reworked first ability, much more, I would say, useful. Aeolus Bag, it's just updating based on the introduced barrier. William White gets a buff, and seemingly it's not much, but it can be a lot, because before you get to destroy top card from any item deck, but what if it's a good card? And this change solves that. You get to check the card and then decide if you want to destroy it. Spawn of Azathoth, it's the same ability, just using the different visual representation. Envoy of Nyarlathotep, a one word if they are targetable from if it is targetable. Gnofkech, also nothing substantial, just rewording. From move toward target explorer up to 4 spaces, it's now move up to 4 spaces toward target explorer. Just being consistent with how we use move toward something. Chtuga. This monster has been reworked. First, the first ability on 2 spawn space is now on 2 explore, so it can create much more formidable cases. And second, we remove that destroy that explorer. When this monster moves, adjacent explorers lose 1 health. So I think you will see the impact of Chtuga much more in the games with it. Bloodstarved, it's a massive update with 1 dash. Reroll is how we roll, so we place the dash. Ossifying grip, I would say the same as before, but just to be consistent, we always have with the conditional passive effect, we have the effect roll and then the column. Okay, so the biggest errata change is to Eternity chapters. All to Eternity chapters have been reworked. That is 50 cards total, 47 chapter cards and 3 title cards. The old to Eternity chapters used a special chapter type. I call these Eternity chapters. They repurposed the horror and spawn sliders as timers instead of rolls. On paper, I like this. It was clean as a concept and gave the expansion a different structure. But after more intense playtesting for Vivarium, I was not happy with what it did to the table. You had to check the timer, reduce it, reset it, and keep doing that round after round. It was not one big flaw, it was many small moments of upkeep, and those moments kept draining tempo. So that framework is gone. And this leads to really good news for veteran boxes. All the new cards that can affect gameplay will be included for free inside the veteran boxes. The price was already established and you already paid for it. I am genuinely happy to upgrade your existing cards and deliver these reworked to Eternity chapters. It should feel that you actually get 3 additional scenarios for free. Enjoy. Next is the guidebook. The first part of the guidebook is still the guided playthrough. That section is mostly the same as before, because it already did its job. It walks players through the first rounds and teaches the rhythm of the game. The old guidebook used the old event space activation cost, which was 3 stamina. In 4th edition, activating an event space is 2 stamina, so that had to be updated in the playthrough. But the bigger change is what comes after the playthrough. The new guidebook has new sections that are meant to make the game more accessible, more enjoyable, and more replayable. Scenario Collection gives players a spoiler-light overview of every scenario across the core box and expansions. Each entry explains the kind of descent it is, roughly how long it runs, and which duration variants are available. This is useful because the game is not just one campaign path. The scenarios have different rhythms. Some are long, some are compact, some are oppressive, and some are more strange or cosmic. And Vivarium is more of an anthology. The guidebook helps players choose what they actually want to put on the table. The duration variants are also important. Full uses the complete scenario deck. Reduced trims the session. Short is the briefest version, usually better for a single sitting or for early games. The guidebook explains how to prepare those variants without changing the rest of the scenario logic. If players want the scenario to become more forgiving or more dangerous, the guidebook points them toward machinations instead. Machinations are optional modules you can add to any scenario. They do not change the scenario's win or loss condition. Instead, they change the texture of the session: combat, terrain, events, monster behavior, item progression, campaign continuity, or the overall difficulty curve. You choose them before setup. Everyone at the table should know which machinations are active, because they stay in force for the whole game, unless their own rules say otherwise. You can use one, or you can combine several if the table wants a more transformed session. There are 15 machinations organized into 3 groups. Blade and Claw is combat focused. Stone and Spark changes the environment and map interactions. Fate and Will changes the larger systems like events, campaign structure, difficulty, or who controls the monster. I will not go through all of those machinations. I will leave that for you to explore on your own. I think you will see some really magnificent ideas there that can truly transform your session. The guidebook also introduces achievements, optional goals you can set for a session. They give the group extra things to chase, and they let you track progress across sessions. Some achievements are triggered by doing something during play, like pulling off a certain kind of feat. Others are finish with a condition achievements, where you choose the restriction before setup and try to win while following it. I'm also not going to go through the full achievement list there, but there's a lot of them, 49 to be exact. The guidebook also introduces Adreama Forge, but I will keep this part short because it is better to show it than to over-explain it from a page. The simple version is this: Adreama Forge is the web companion for Machina Arcana. It brings together the card database, session building, machinations, achievements, and session logging. The overlooked rules section is one of the most valuable additions in the guidebook. Game has a lot of compact ability text. A single word like target, any, nearest, spawn, place, or current can decide how an effect actually works. These rules were already there, but they were easy to miss because they sit inside a system that has many interacting parts. This section collects those missed rulings in one place. It is a reference for the places where players most often add a limitation that is not written, or forget that a short rule reaches further than it first appears. My recommendation is simple: read this section after a few games, and then revisit it every now and then. It will probably answer questions you did not know you were playing differently. There is also a section called Playing Spectrum of Machina Arcana. The idea here is to show how one fairly simple item can contain a lot of the game's deeper logic. The example is Circular Saw. At first, it looks like a melee weapon: lose stamina, attack with dice. But if you keep reading, the card becomes a lesson in timing, markers, essence, out-of-turn abilities, targeting, ethereal units, and how broad or narrow an ability actually is. The goal of this section is not to make the game sound more complicated. It is the opposite. It gives players a concrete example of how the rules connect, so the next time they see a strange ability, they have a better way to think about it. And with that, the new guidebook is covered. It is also available in the Files and Download section, together with the new manual. Now I want to move from the printed material to the website. The homepage has been rebuilt from scratch. The first section is mostly the general presentation of the game, similar to what you already know from the Gamefound campaign, so I will not spend too much time on that. Homepage is now a better home for the game after the campaign. It gives us a place for galleries, guides, downloadable files, and the tools that are becoming part of Adreama Forge. The galleries are one of the first things I want to show. There is work here from Paul Rose from Wendigo Studio, and his painted miniatures look amazing. I also want to give credit to Andy Scott, who made some remarkable photos of the production sample miniatures he received from the factory. The guide section has also been reworked in the new website style. All this material existed before, but now it is presented more cleanly and connected to the rest of the support structure. The files section is important because this is where you can download the new manual and the new guidebook. So if you already have Machina Arcana, you do not need to wait for a future box to use these improvements. Download the manual, download the new guidebook, read them and use them with the game you already have. The card database has been reworked and redesigned, and it is now part of Adreama Forge. This is still a tool for looking up cards, but the experience is much better now. I will select a card first. Here you can see the card image, and I can flip it when the card has a back side. Below that, the database shows the abilities and lore in a way that is easier to read than zooming into an image. Filtering is also improved. I can start with checkboxes to narrow by set, card type, or other available filters. The search can also move from name to rule text. This is one of the most important parts because sometimes you do not remember the card name. You remember that a card mentions ethereal units or pits or markers or reducing threat. Rule search makes that kind of lookup possible. The UI and the cards are available in multiple languages here. Internationalization will come to other parts of the website as well. Of course, you don't need an account to access card database. It is public and free. The card database is the first part of the Forge I wanted to show, and this is where the guidebook ideas begin to connect. So now I want to go deeper into the Adreama Forge itself. But in order to access those features, we will need to create an account. So bind an account, we place a username, email can be whatever, there is no verification email for now, so don't worry about it. And the password, and you're in. So this is the beginning of the Adreama Forge for you. You can always just go to card database and normally use it to access, but you also get to comment. But more than that, this console will be your guide to help you prepare the session and then keep track of your previous sessions. You will not actually use that during the game. So this is not a companion app that you will use while playing, just before and after. I do believe that the board game, at least Machina Arcana, works best offline without any kind of technology. So let's go through a concrete example. We start a session by beginning a descent. Then we choose a date and time. Session name, leave it for later. So it makes sense, after we play the game and then we name them because we might name them from something that happened in the session. So which boxes do we have? Let's say we have Core and To Eternity. There are 2 explorers. Then scenario. We're going to choose To Eternity scenario, and from that set we're gonna play the first Genesis. And immediately you see here that you get 2 variants, a full and short variant. Let's go, we are going with a short variant of Genesis. So we click on that. Then Machinations. There are 15 very cool and interesting mods how you can play the game with. So let's say that we want to go easy on our first session and just apply critical hit. Okay. And then pacts, achievements. What are we going to strive for? I would recommend to just go with all, because if you later achieve any of those achievements, they're going to be removed from this list. So why not try to strive towards everything? Okay. And then review and print. So this is our prepared session. Only critical hit as a machinations, and let's say that we are going towards all the achievements. A good thing about this page is that it enables us to prepare a session sheet. So this sheet can be easily printed. So after we've done this, we have our session sheet. We might even print that. And then later we will come back and we will do a report. So is it a win, a loss, or an abandoned session? If it's a loss or an abandon, the achievements are not going to be stored, because only if you win the game will the achievements be earned. So let's say we won the game in 1 hour. Notes, it was a hard game, but we made it in the nick of time. And let's say you managed to kill a level 4 monster, you will just click on this achievement. So let's say we've made a cleaving blow, destroy at least 2 monsters while resolving a single ability from an item. And let's go towards the bottom and field dressing. Explorers restore at least 5 health to other explorers. And that's it. Our report has been accepted. Our offering is accepted. And we get 5 points. So we have 3 achievements that we earned. And there's a lot of them still waiting for us to earn. Then we get to read the report. So this will be a place where all of your sessions will be. And you could easily then see across all the sessions how did you fare. So let's place the name there just so that we can remember it later. Saturday night with grandma. Okay, save session. So that's it. So the session ledger is here. But if we want to see all of the achievements and how are we standing in terms of what we earned, what we completed, this is the page for it. We see that we only have 5 points earned. We completed 3 of them, and we still have 46 open achievements. You can now see the achievements that we earned, and you can click on the recent session. And this is the session where we completed the achievement. This is of course optional, but now with the variants for the scenario, then the mods, the machinations, and then the achievements across sessions, I think that it gives you options for exploring and replaying the game endlessly. So that is the Adreama Forge. It's already open, it's already there. People who already have the game can dive right in. Before closing, I also want to mention the Pledge Manager. It should be ready at the beginning of August. When it opens, you will be asked to fill in your shipping details and finalize your order. Take this seriously and fill in your details. Order additional products, pay for everything including shipping. So, localization is underway, and we are also moving into pre-production for the physical game components. For that pre-production step, I would like the factory to create a core box first. This gives us a chance to inspect the quality of their non-miniature work, the box printed materials, punchboards, cards, inserts, and the other physical components beside the miniatures. I will talk more about that in the upcoming project update. For now, the important thing is that the content has reached the point where production can move forward, and the Pledge Manager is the next practical step for backers. That is the update. The manual has received a deep and thorough quality pass, and the new pre-production version is available. The 4th edition Errata has been tackled across all sets. 2 Eternity chapters have been reworked completely. The guidebook is reworked and now helps players even after they learn the game. The homepage has been rebuilt, the galleries, guides, files, all easier to access. The card database is redesigned, multilingual, and now part of Adreama Forge. And Adreama Forge is where all of this begins to turn into a proper support system for playing, preparing, and recording your sessions. Pledge Manager should be ready at the beginning of August, where you will fill in your shipping details and finalize your order. Thank you for following the project, for sending feedback, and for staying patient with the work that is not always dramatic in a single screenshot, but really matters once the game is on the table. All the best, and see you soon.